Hi guys, what is up? It is Alex here, and today we're going to be doing a preview of the 2013 Australian Grand Prix. Now the footage in the background is actually some footage of me going go-karting with my GoPro somewhere around where I live, and it was a cold day in the start of February, and it was quite a good day, but yeah, that's the footage in the background. Hopefully it's more interesting than F1 gameplay in the background, yeah, enjoy that in the background. Let's get into the preview of this year's first Grand Prix. So the season will officially start on the 17th of March in the practice sessions around Australia, and yeah, it's going to be a first time for a lot of things here. We're going to see the sort of full cars, we're going to see them with all the bits they've been practicing with over the winter testing, and actually find out what they're actually using and what they're not using. And it's going to be a big day for Formula 1 because 2012 was such a great year, and there is so much to live up to this year. And the fact that we got a Grand Prix on the 17th of March, then the 24th of March, only a week later we have the Malaysian Grand Prix, is also a really good thing, because that means that we get a lot of F1 F1 airtime within a couple of weeks of coming back to the sport. So first off, what I'm going to do is read through all of the teams and all of the drivers, because finally now, after many months of teams backing out of drivers and terminating contracts, we've got a whole full grid. So here we are. Infinity Red Bull Racing have Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber. Scuderia Ferrari have Fernando Alonso and Felipe Massa. Vodafone McLaren Mercedes have Jenson Button and Sergio Perez. Lotus F1 team have Kimi Raikkonen and Romain Grosjean. Mercedes AMG Petronans F1 team have Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton. Sauber F1 team have Nico Hulkenberg and Esteban Gutierrez. Sahara Force India have Paul di Resta and Adrian Sutil. Williams F1 team have Pastor Maldonado and Valtteri Bottas. Scuderia Toro Rosso have John-Eric Verne and Daniel Ricciardo. Caterham F1 team will have Charles Pic and Guido van der Garde. And the last team on the grid, Marussia F1, have Jules Bianchi and Max Chilton. So after many months of Marussia not really confirming a second driver and dipping in and out of contracts with Glock and their other driver, which would have been Luis Razzia, but now it is Jules Bianchi. So there are the 22 drivers for this season, and hopefully everybody stays for the whole season and there aren't too many people getting their contracts terminated and everything. And yeah, let's get into the Australian Grand Prix, go through every single team and see what they've got for the 2013 season. So let's lead off with the champions from 2010, 2011 and 2012, Red Bull Racing. So they haven't really ever been that good round Australia. They've had some races. I think 2011 was one of the races they won, but apart from that, Red Bull haven't been too strong round Australia. It's Mark Webber's home track, and he's never fared too well here. I think his best result was actually last year, a 4th or a 5th place finish. And Sebastian Vettel, I think he's won here once, but neither of them really are the drivers that suit this track too well. And for that, and the fact that the Red Bull over the last couple of years isn't really suiting this track, I'm going to say Red Bull are probably going to be a slight bit back from where they wanted to be, but who knows. Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber, they always come out the sort of block strong in the season, and they always do pretty well. Ferrari, Alonso and Felipe Massa. Felipe Massa having absolutely amazing form here, and sort of at the end of last year, he has amazing pace, and it's really good to see a Massa back on form, and Alonso on form here as well. I think Alonso has won in Australia in the past. I don't think Felipe Massa has, but the fact that they are probably going to be in a more developed Ferrari than last year makes me think they're going to be a bit higher up the grid. I think they're actually going to be racing with Red Bull in this race, and but we'll see about that when it comes around. McLaren, Jenson Button and Perez. Jenson Button probably is the best driver on this track for the track. He's the best driver, in my opinion, for this track. He won this race in 2009, he won this race in 2010, and he also won this race last year in 2012. He's won 3 of the last 4 races around this track, and you cannot count him out of a contention, whatever the car is like. Even if the car is about half a second off the pace, I think Jenson Button could be right up there. Sergio Perez had a bit unlucky, he was a bit unlucky around here last year. I think he started from the back and didn't have quite the race he wanted, but I think he still came out with a pretty decent result. But McLaren, in my opinion, are the strongest team going into this race, with their drivers at least. I don't think it's going to be the strongest car, but they definitely have, I think, in my opinion, the strongest team around this track. Next up, Lotus. Now, Romain Grosjean secured, I think it was 3rd position on the grid last year around here in Australia, and Kimi Raikkonen started from the back obviously after his retirement, then he came back and he had a good race. He came back all the way through into the points. He had a great strong race, so even though he qualified right at the back, I still think Lotus is a team to watch out for. I probably haven't said it enough in some of these videos I've been making recently, but Lotus, they look almighty strong. They're sort of, I think there was an F1 racing magazine calling them the Dark Knights. Last year, nobody expected them to win. And guess what? They got loads of podiums and a win. And that sort of showed, we always knew they were there. Kimi Raikkonen finished third in the championship, remember. And he's definitely got the pace and the car underneath him, I think, to get on the podium at least in this race, maybe even go for the win. Now, let's move on to Mercedes. A lot of new fans for the Mercedes team this year after Lewis Hamilton comes from McLaren over to Mercedes. Sort of a sister team, but not really that tied in together. And also Nico Rosberg in that team. A lot of people probably forgot that because a lot of people are focusing on Hamilton, but Nico Rosberg is in that team. He won a race last year. He is on probably some of the form of his life at the start of 2012, and I think he can definitely pull together some good results in 2013. And if the car is there for him and Hamilton, there will definitely be an opportunity to go for the win. In the pre-season testing, the Mercedes looked extremely fast, and Rosberg was the fastest out of the Barcelona test, the second Barcelona test, which was the test when most of the teams were actually going for a timed lap. So that is important for Mercedes. They might have had the upper hand for pre-season testing, but we'll see when it comes around to about a week's time how fast this Mercedes is. But I think it is fast, and we'll wait and see. Then Sauber is the next team on the grid with Hulkenberg and Gutierrez. Hulkenberg, in my opinion, was the star of 2012. He pulled out so many good, amazing results out of 2012 when the car really wasn't there for him. And this year at Sauber, which is the team that had its most podiums last year, which was 4, and Hulkenberg, I think, has probably gone for the right move here. A lot of people, making the move seem a bit sort of dodgy or whatever, but I think that's a good move for him. And the fact that he's got one of the greatest GP2 drivers from last year, Gutierrez, alongside him is a good thing, because Gutierrez is going to learn so much from Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg is one of those drivers which really should be in the top 3 or 4 team, and I think he will be in the next couple of years. But yeah, Gutierrez is going to learn a lot from Hulkenberg. I think the Sauber is going to be nearing the end of the top 10 for the first round in Australia. And that's the same with this next team I'm going to be coming up with, which is Sahara Force India, with Adrian Sutil and Paul di Resta. Probably the team, if you really thought about it, it's probably the strongest Force India team they've had. Last year was actually pretty strong as well, but I think if you had Adrian Sutil and Hulkenberg, that would probably be the strongest Force India team there has ever been. Even though Fisichella was good, so I'm getting my mind mixed up here, but it's definitely a good team. Di Resta and Sutil have been teammates before, and it's a bit sad for Di Resta that he hasn't actually beaten a teammate at the 2 attempts he's had so far. But Force India didn't look that good in pre-season testing, but they got a lot of laps done, and Sutil, nearing the end of that test, was pretty fast. He was up there in the top 5 of the last couple of testing sessions he did, and that sort of makes me think Sahara Force India are faster than they sort of initially said at the start of pre-season testing back in Jerez. Williams F1 team, again using the Renault engines, which probably propelled them to a bit more points than they got in the previous year. Maldonado and Bottas. Bottas, probably the up-and-coming star from Finland, an absolutely amazing driver, at least on 1 lap pace. We saw that in the practice sessions we saw last year. And Maldonado, a race winner, is going into the Australian Grand Prix, where he was doing so well last year until he binned it on one of the penultimate laps of the race. Williams, they are looking not extremely fast, but pretty good, in a pretty decent place. I think they had a couple of components took off their car after they were deemed illegal, but definitely Williams are looking strong. That sadly cannot be said for Toro Rosso. They weren't very high up the timing sheets or the distance sheets for the last test in Barcelona. They didn't get that many laps in, and they were not very fast either, which was a bit of a sad thing to see for them, because I think Toro Rosso were really hoping to jump ahead of Williams, Sauber and Force India this year, maybe get up to 6th position in the Constructors' Championship. Sadly, that doesn't look like it's going to happen, but who knows. Toro Rosso came into Australia last year not really expecting much, but ending up getting, I think, both cars in the points at the end of the race last year. Maybe actually they lost the points right at the end, but they were strong in that Australian race last year. and definitely looking forward to more points from them this year, especially as Vern and Ricciardo are coming of age a bit more and have got a lot more experience on these tracks. Caterham, Charles Pic and Guido van der Garde. Charles Pic obviously had a year at Marussia where he learnt a lot of things. He was probably one of the best drivers to ever come out of Marussia, and that is the fact that he came into another team. Lots of the other second drivers, let's remember them. I think it's Degrassi, D'Ambrosio were the two before him. Neither of them went into a race seat the year after. Charles Pic has done just that, probably meaning that he is a better driver than them. Who knows, but Caterham picked him up instead of Kovalainen or Petrov, which is obviously a good thing for him. They obviously think that Charles Pic is pretty good because he comes with a bit of sponsorship but not a lot. And Guido van der Garde is the other driver there, and he's got a lot of experience. He's a fast guy, and I think he'll do pretty well this year. Let's move on to the last team, Marussia. Lots of termination of contracts in the last couple of months, but it ended up with Jules Bianchi finally getting that seat with a week to go. Who knows, that might change once again. But Max Chilton is the other driver in that team. Max Chilton not looking as fast as his teammate Jules Bianchi at the moment, but let's remember Jules Bianchi is 2 years older and had a lot more race time, or not race time, but practice time in a Formula 1 car. So we can obviously see Jules Bianchi is more experienced in a Formula 1 car, than Max Chilton. So expect in the first couple of races for Bianchi and Chilton to be probably a bit spread apart, with Bianchi probably being in front, but as the season goes on, I think Chilton will be a bit closer and closer and closer, and I think you've got to expect the same from Caterham there. I think Guido van der Garde is probably going to be a bit behind, but as the season goes on, it'll be a bit closer. So for Caterham and Marussia, I think they're going to be trying to get onto the sort of doorstep of Toro Rosso. I don't know if they're going to be there at the start of the season. They did look actually pretty close in testing, only about 5 tenths of a second behind the Toro Rosso, which is encouraging for them. But obviously we don't know the fuel loads and everything, so we can't read into the times. But definitely looking a lot better for Caterham and Marussia than it was this time last year. And they actually got some testing in. And that is all the teams, that is all the drivers. I think for a top 5, we're going to go with Jenson Button in first position, second place Fernando Alonso, third place Sebastian Vettel, fourth place Perez, and fifth place Massa, and sixth place Webber. Maybe, maybe not. That's a bit random. That's just choosing the top 3 teams there as well. I think that as well, Kimi Räikkönen and Grosjean, Rosberg and Hamilton will probably be right up there, but the Mercedes hasn't been that reliable, which is a big thing you need to remember going into the season. And Lotus was reliable, but maybe just not as fast. So yeah, maybe I won't go. Maybe I'm not going to go with that order. Maybe I might go with some people in the top 5. I think Vettel will be up there, Alonso, Massa, Button, Perez, Raikkonen, and Hamilton and Rosberg. So there's about 8 or 9 drivers there, which will probably be up there for the top 5. But who knows, guys? We're getting near the end of this video, and I'd really appreciate down in the comment section of this video if you could tell me what you think about this race. What are your sort of preview for this race? What's your preview? What do you think is going to happen? Because I'm looking forward to this race. It's going to be a good one. I really hope it's as good a season as 2012. And down in the comment section, maybe leave who you think is going to be the top 5 for this year, because it's definitely going to be a good year. It's just about sort of what times and what sort of races happen, about the winners that will come. But yeah, definitely down in the comment section, guys, let me know who you think is going to win this race and who you think is going to be the top 5. But as I said, that is pretty much it. Thank you for watching, guys. I appreciate it, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.